Well, good day guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my NRL round number 1 draw. Now, the NRL will be releasing their draw, I would say, within the next fortnight. So there will be some content relating to that and a full reaction to some game from the draw, some games you can't miss, obviously the grand final rematch, Panthers versus Broncos, those type of games. But let's get into the games that I think we should see in round 1. Obviously, we know that there is that game over in the US at Allegiant Stadium between the Manly, Rabbitoh, Roosters and the Broncos heading over there. But let's get into all the teams, including the bye, how I would like the ideal round 1 draw to go.
To entertain house.
All right, so in no particular order, let's start off with this game, which is obviously the games in USA. Now, from what I'm hearing, it will be the South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the Manly Seagulls. Latrell Mitchell up against Tom Trbojevic, Cody Walker potentially up against Luke Brooks. Some interesting matchups there, to say the least. The Rabbitohs and the Sea Eagles in the USA probably going to open up the season, in my opinion. If not that game, the next game, which I believe these games are a doubleheader back to back, and I believe it's on Saturday, which means that they might not be the opening games of NRL. However, I feel like that would be the way to go. And those games are the Broncos and the Roosters. The Broncos, they were the runners-up, and then the Roosters, they have some new recruits who are looking really nicely this year. Dominic Young coming into the side as well, and the Broncos will absolutely want to start the season with fire there over in the US. So the Broncos and the Roosters for mine. Now we get into some other games. Now I'm going to have the Dolphins versus the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs welcome Stephen Crichton to their team. There is a lot to like about the Bulldogs, lots of new recruits, and going up against the Dolphins, Jake Averillo has now gone to the Dolphins, and we often see a former teammate play their former club in the opening game, and I think this will be a nice little opener at Suncorp Stadium. The next game, I would have the Newcastle Knights taking on the Penrith Panthers. Now, the Panthers and Knights games last year, they were really close. That game almost, I think it did go to Golden Point, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Kalen Ponga up against Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary and Jackson Hastings. A lot to like about that game. And I think the Newcastle Knights should have a home opener here. I think the Panthers have gotten a lot of home openers in recent years. I think Knights versus Panthers at Newcastle would get a really good crowd. And I think that this game, if I'm not mistaken, well, it's hard with the US what's going to happen with time slots here, but I think this game would probably be a Saturday 5:30 game, which is a nice time slot as well. Actually, then we've got the West Tigers taking on the North Queensland Cowboys. We saw some weird matchups between these sides throughout the season. Obviously, 66 to 18 or 50 something, massive scoreline. I think it was 66 to 18 and then 74-0. I honestly can't remember. The season is still fresh in the back of the mind, but that particular game, just, blowout, you wouldn't have picked that kind of scoreline, would you? But yeah, these two teams, the Tigers, they've gone off back-to-back wooden spoons, and then the Cowboys have missed final. So I think it'd be interesting to see the Cowboys on the road. And I guess this game would probably be at Bankwest Stadium. I know you could probably take it to Campbelltown as well, but I think you'd want a decent crowd for the opening game of the season for the West Tigers, and the Cowboys might get some fans there. Next up, I've got the Sharks taking on the Melbourne Storm. I think this would be a cracking game of football. This would be the Saturday night game between the Sharks and the Storm. I'd have this game at PointsBet Stadium. Nico Hines up against his old club. You got Will Kennedy going up against Ryan Pappenhausen if he's back and fit for the start of the season. So, yeah, some really nice battles there throughout these sides. So I think it's a really nice matchup between the Cronulla Sharks and the Melbourne Storm, who in recent years there has been some close matchup between these sides. Obviously last year we saw the Sharks get absolutely blown out of the water by the Melbourne Storm. When the Storm play the Sharks at Amy, it's always really close On the road, it's a bit of a different game, but I think the Sharks would really give it to the Storm, who are going to be a bit different, I think, coming into this season. Next up, I'm going to have a game that we have seen for round one, I think at least the last couple years, if not at least once in the last 3 years, and it's the Gold Coast Titans and the Parramatta Eel. We got to host the Titans, I think it was 2021 or 2022 actually, for the opening game of the season. So why not take it up to Cbus for the Titans to host the Parramatta Eel? Two teams that missed the top 8 that a lot of teams are really hoping for expectation wise this season. And myself versus BKR Sport opening up in round one would be really, really nice. Then I'd finish off the season in New Zealand. I guess you'd probably have to swap these games around, maybe due to time frame because of the whole New Zealand factor. But I'd finish it off in New Zealand with the Warriors and the Dragons. Now, these are always decent games between, the New Zealand Warriors and the Dragons. You got the debut for the Dragons of Kyle Flanagan. You've got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming home. You've got to give the Warriors a home game in round one. Absolutely. They've had a fantastic season going to the prelim as well. They deserve this. And there are a few other things they deserve, which I'll speak about in a separate video. I'm going to have the Canberra Raiders here, obviously, guys, having the bye. I just think the Raiders, they've had a lot of home openers, if I'm not mistaken, in recent years. And yeah, I think some of these matchups are really, really nice. If anyone else was to miss it, maybe the Cowboys get the bye and it's the Tigers and the Raiders at Suncorp Stadium, or even at GIO for that other game. But yeah, I think that either the Cowboys or the Raiders will probably get the bye to start off the opening round. I don't think it's fair to give the Knights the first bye, considering they missed Magic Round last year, and there's going to be a lot of hype for NRL teams, at the start of the season in those round one games. But those are my matchups for round number one. Let me know what your matchups are in the comments. Do you think any of these games will come real come round one? I remember I predicted I think it was the Rabbitohs and the Sharks to meet in round one last year, and I actually got that right, so that was fantastic. But guys, if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Welcome back if you haven't been here for a while. Let me know your predictions below for round number one of the NRL. I can't wait for the draw to come out. Plenty of content, NRL, NBA, NFL coming out for you guys, and I'll see you guys later.